Lots of Fisker news today, including what might happen after the FOA. And the big question, obviously, what happens if you don't join? Let's get right into it. Before we go anywhere, let's just break down all the recent tidbits about Fisker. There's going to be a cloud company, and they will run the cloud. Speaking of the cloud, the Fisker Owners Association now has access, which is huge. With the control of the cloud and the servers going to American Lease and the FOA by association, the recall program has now been taken over by American Lease. There's like an 85% success rate for the ones that went out yesterday, so good news there. In the event you sign up for one of these 2.2 rollouts, you probably should not drive at all because that definitely can cause problems. They've also taken over the water pump and the door handle recall. So that can now move forward and communication can now be made between you and the FOA and American Lease who's handling the pumps. So that communication probably is going to be the biggest benefit for individual owners. Fisker throughout the bankruptcy process held the cloud hostage pretty much, and that was no good for anybody. But American Lease and the Fisker Owners Association now have their access to their licenses for the IP and the cloud specifically. There are a lot of issues with parts. Fisker Austria, for example, is a company of its own. The Flying Doctors that Christian mentioned in my recent video where we spoke are part of Fisker Austria. They also have a massive warehouse full of parts, and they haven't decided what they're going to do with them yet. If indeed they do decide to sell it, the Owners Association will get into that business, but if not, they may be the ones selling the parts. It's part of the reason why Europe has been behind, because the bankruptcy over there in Austria has been different than in the United States. Fisker Austria is right now working on a 10-year support plan, so it does look like Oceans will have some kind of support from the Fisker Austria entity going forward, which is good news. Because Fisker is now Chapter 7 and the FOA now has access to the cloud, a lot of things are freeing up. For example, there are many fast tools that will now become functional and get moved over to people who can use them. The Fisker IP right now is being backed up, as in all of the source code and all those things are being basically put into one big purchasable shell so someone can buy the IP. And as far as IP buyers, there have been rumors that there might be a buyer. The only thing I can confirm right now is that I don't hear of any OEMs, but it could be Henrik Fisker. You never know. I wouldn't put it past him to come back after his IP. He was very adamant about getting the Fisker name back on the other bankruptcy. But the final thing to consider about the IP buyer is that this IP has been for sale in one way or another for almost a year now, and no one has bitten. There's a 2.2 trial. If you're in the Fisker Owners Association, you can sign up for that. Those who are going to be in this next pilot program are encouraged to stay completely away from their vehicles for an entire day while the update takes place. It's going to be pushed to the car, so you won't have to confirm it or anything. But you do need to make sure that your battery is in good health. That has to be done while the car is asleep. Otherwise, it's going to show it's in good health because the high voltage system will be charging it. But what if my battery isn't in good health? I've got you covered there, don't worry. Die Hard H4 XEV or Super Start Platinum 140 RPLT. That's the 12-volt battery you're going to need. The vent situation is still bad. Solutions for that aren't going to be available very soon. The windshield problem is getting better in Europe faster than it is in the US, and there could be a long wait if you're looking for a windshield, as well as a solar roof. But the most pressing question for a Fisker owner has got to be, what do I get if I join the FOA? And alongside that, what do I get if I choose not to join? And that question was answered. First of all, the Ocean is a connected car and needs the cloud. OTA patches if there's a problem. Fast licensing control and improvements are required for anyone to get any service. Updates to infotainment. But most importantly, diagnosis. If you're hooked up to the cloud, the FOA knows what's going on with your vehicle. They can diagnose it remotely because now they have access to the cloud, and they can get a better idea of what to deploy and how to keep the most owners safe, functional, and on the road and operating. On top of that, the Fisker app and any API, that's like third-party apps and stuff, like Fisker Live, remote unlocking, also going to be part of the membership. Obviously, the community platform, your ability to vote and communicate with the FOA, including access to official archives and all of the other cataloged information on the community platforms, insights and voting power on changes to anything infotainment and connectivity related. You can develop your own proposal and bring it to the FOA to be voted on. Meetups for support, meetups for camaraderie. At the service meetups, fob programming, 12-volt tender installations, etc. They're working on a AAA style benefit. Not confirmed yet, but that's definitely something they're wanting to offer, you would have the power to vote on that as a member. Android Automotive, Apple CarPlay, or Android Auto. If those things do end up coming to fruition in the future, you would only get those if you're a member. But what about service? That's basically all you get if you decide not to join the FOA. You can go to a Fisker certified service center and get service. But there are circumstances when you're serviced where in order to service your vehicle, you may have to reconnect to the American Lease FOA cloud, and that could result in a reconnection fee. They haven't decided what the fee is going to be yet, but you're going to have a fee. But for the most part, the reconnection fee is for people who want a feature but don't want to be a member. So you join, you pay your $150 quarterly fee, you download the new, let's say, Android Auto service that they're offering for the infotainment, and you never pay again. That makes other members pay more for the same features, so you have to pay a reconnection fee if that results. Updates to infotainment, participation in future features, remote unlock, remote diagnosis. That's if you lock yourself out of your car or something's wrong and you can't figure it out. There's a chance it could be diagnosed over the air. The ability to create new features. It's all out. T-Mobile, you're not going to have it. And through that, any form of navigation, including TomTom if they decide to keep it, will not be available. There's a survey right now to see if people want to continue with TomTom or not, or an interim solution, or just go without. That's going to be part of your membership. If the FOA decides not to go with TomTom, well, you can still get TomTom if you want it. There'll be an individual negotiation. It may be a little more expensive, but you will be able to continue to get traffic data and all the connectivity that comes with that TomTom system if you're used to it and you're using it already. There are other smaller questions like what if I own two? The FOA is considering a discount for that, but that number hasn't been figured out yet. And they're going to throw out the Henrik video in your settings menu. Can the FOA move away from being a subscription-based model itself? The answer to this is functionally no. If they wanted to build a cloud and launch it and maintain it, there's going to be cost there. Period. So even in the event that the FOA is completely independent of anyone else, the Fisker IP thing after 5 years goes away, there's a brand new non-contract where they've solved all the problems within their own confines, you still are going to have an issue. And the issue will be, how do we pay for that service to keep the cloud going? So can we have Oceans without being a subscription model? The answer is no, unfortunately. Is their price point confirmed at $150 a quarter? Based on what they've communicated, yes. But there's a $50 discount if you can pay by December 15th. And you can start paying your quarterly dues for the first quarter of 2025 on November the 18th. Who can program the key fobs? You can go to Electrified Ocean, which is a website. I can put it right here and deal with it that way. That's kind of a DIY solution, but there's probably not as much of a murky period of wait or figuring out a meetup, or joining the FOA for that matter. You can definitely do it that way. The next thing to do would be to join the FOA, get involved in their conversations, and they'll be setting up a meeting somewhere in your vicinity. And when I say in your vicinity, it could be 500 miles for you. It probably would have been for me. And I'll get to that point later. What is the average cost for programming the key fobs? An FOA member that chooses to go to a meetup would not have a cost. So that's the best possible result. You can also go to one of the FOA service centers, which are accessible publicly on their website, and get it done there. Those prices are going to vary. I know the Fisker King was talking somewhere around a couple $100. What is the benefit of CarPlay to the existing setup? As someone who's never used it, I just don't know. I've watched a few videos on this, but I'm not sure what it's doing differently. CarPlay integrates your phone onto your car screen. Not all of it, but all the legitimate functional things you would want to be doing while driving that's safe. And it is as seamless as an experience can get from one device to another. It's almost the same as if you HDMI plugged in your phone to your TV with some of the apps missing. And it really, really benefits you because the maps are going to work. You're going to have other features like Waze. Your music's going to integrate. You won't have to sign up for a different subscription for that if you've already got something you're used to. Apple CarPlay is excellent, and the reason why people are excited about it and want it to be done is because right now in 2024-25, it's kind of the best solution for car integration with technology, as car companies themselves are just now figuring out how to get kind of a high-level tech solution that's not CarPlay. Excluding Tesla and Rivian and Lucid, of course, but you can judge those on your own. Not everybody likes those. I'm trying to get the recalled water pump installed. Is American Lease installing them? American Lease is right on the cusp of launching things. But if you want a water pump recall done, you can contact one of the service centers that are set up on the FOA community website. And once again, that's a public site. If your vehicle works, I don't recommend going after the water pump recall right now. There's no reason to replace it until it fails. I got out of my Fisker Ocean 1 a few weeks ago for $20,000. Sad, but I still believe it's for the best. $20,000 right now is not a bad trade. It's kind of a bad price to pay for one, but that's a pretty good value for a trade. Adam questioned, what are your thoughts about Hagens Berman? They are the most experienced and powerful class action litigators in this sector in the United States. And I don't know, above and beyond that, do you trust Tide to clean your clothes, or someone you've just walked down the street and bought soap from? Because that's kind of what you're talking about if you go outside of Hagens Berman for this. Yes, you could have experienced arbitration litigators that will do a very good job, but Hagens Berman has all of the data, all of the information. They can compare and contrast and decide what level of successful potential your specific case would have. They're fighting for a class action resolution because it kind of helps everyone. It costs Hagens Berman less money and the bank less money, and more money would go to those benefiting from the litigation. I would definitely go with Hagens Berman if there were any other alternatives. I don't think it's a good idea to go small here. I don't understand why Chase could be held responsible for poor decisions made by the borrowers and Fisker buyers. Chase also made a poor decision by offering a Fisker branded financial product under their business. That's part of the problem. The other part that makes Chase responsible is it's the law. It's the same reason an 18-year-old can't just mosey down to the local Irish pub and grab a car bomb. It's against the law. There will be someone there checking to see. Just because people didn't figure this law out immediately, by the way, the holder rule is a law, and that's the law. And what do people fight for in court? Well, the law. What happens after 5 years of Fisker ownership? Well, that's where it starts to get murky, because American Lease has decided that 5 to 7 years is going to be the useful life for these Oceans. And after that, the Fisker Owners Association may have, and I'm totally speculating here, a heavier weight to bear when it comes to continuing Fisker Ocean service. I don't think they're going to try to turn it off, but I think keeping it turned on could be a problem if there isn't an entire infrastructure of development that is done by volunteers during the next 5-year period. Because once American Lease decides, hey, we don't want to run these cars anymore, we're going to get rid of them. Number one, a whole bunch of them are going to hit the market for super low price. Number two, that cloud contract may be a completely different company that could just refuse to give it. And who knows what else. But there's a lot of potential bad news there. One of the reasons I got out. The other reason, the completely uncorrectable thing that the Fisker owners and the Fisker Owners Association will have to deal with probably forever and increasingly less successfully is insurance. Geico doesn't have to do a whole bunch of research to find out how much it's going to cost or not cost to insure 3,000 cars that are owned by a separate company. They also may not be happy about the fact that a bunch of owners now have control of their own cars and, in retaliation, could, refuse to insure the cars. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's already going on. So insurance will get increasingly more expensive and increasingly prohibitive to locate. For example, the Ocean I bought cost $40,000, and my insurance was $98 a month. My Honda Prologue cost $50,000, and my insurance was $50 a month. These are cars with almost exactly the same footprint, almost exactly the same battery, and almost exactly the same horsepower. When Fisker was still a company, Progressive thought it was twice as risky to insure it as compared to a Honda that's actually a GM that's not going to ever be made again. Now, on the flip side of that, Teslas are notoriously expensive to insure if you can't get Tesla insurance. For another comparison, my Tesla Model Y cost me $125 a month to insure, but remember, it was a 2021, and that's when Teslas were pretty new as far as mass market, and It has almost twice as much horsepower. And that kind of thing is definitely what insurance companies look at when insuring a car, as well as real-world data. Those are your Fisker questions that you've asked me recently, and the one problem that keeps me from going back into the Fisker fold: insurance. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Join Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access to videos. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you on the next one.
Hey, smash the like button.
Thank you.